Hey, thanks for joining me. We're going to be starting a new series, and I'm going to kind of disembark from some of that power sports stuff a little bit. We're going to go into radio work, two-way radios, mobile two-way radios to be specific. So I'm going to start a series on how to install mobile two-way radios in multiple different vehicles. And in order to kick that off, I wanted to give a little bit of background information as to what type of mobile two-way radios are available, what the advantages, disadvantages of each are, and then in the description, I'm going to have a ton of links for you to go and dig into true experts in the different areas of different types of radios, and you can go watch other people's videos. My thing that I like to do on this channel is mostly like how to do something that you didn't think that you would have the knowledge to do. I can share that information and help somebody accomplish something that they had put off or didn't think they'd be able to do because they didn't want to pay somebody else to do or couldn't find somebody else to do it for them. So I'm going to break it down. Full installs, we're going to do mobile radio installs in both a side-by-side and a Ram 2500, 2018 Ram 2500 pickup. So they're going to be a little bit different in each vehicle, but the gist of how you do it is going to be the same no matter what vehicle you go to. So even if you just watch the side-by-side portion, you're going to get what you need to be able to tackle it in your car. You can come back as I develop more of the videos, and you'll see exactly what I do in the Ram truck. And things are going to be a little more detailed in the Ram truck. We're going to do multiple antennas, multiple radios, multiple kinds of radios. Whereas it's going to be a very simple dual band ham radio that's going in the side-by-side with a single antenna. Very easy connections because you're not having to do a lot of work running wires. It's very easy to work on those side-by-sides. The interesting part with this is while I'm talking about ham radios, it's the same for GMRS, which is very popular out there right now in the outdoor market, as well as MURS, MURS. It's very niche market on that one. Not a whole lot of radios available, but I'll discuss it just in case nobody's ever heard of it. And it's the same for land mobile radios, which are typically referred to as LMR radios. Land mobile radios are more specific to public safety and businesses that have a lot of money to spend on communications equipment. And then it's also the same for CBs. However, CBs are really going out of business lately because the advances in GMRS and ham radios really knocks CB radios out of the park, and there's almost no need to ever use a CB radio. So as I said, everything is basically the exact same between GMRS and ham radios as far as the install goes. There's a little bit difference in antenna tuning sometimes, but we're going to cover that. So as we move along, I will break everything down for you. So we'll go over product videos as far as what I'm actually buying in the small components, such as NMO mounts, which are your mount that you're going to use for your antenna, coax cables, different kinds of fittings that you would put on. We'll talk about the tools that we're going to use that you may not have around the house typically. Most things you can easily get on Amazon nowadays. And then some of the more tricky stuff like an SWR meter, which is testing your antenna, or using an antenna analyzer. So we're going to be breaking down things like the Rig Expert 500. It's stuff like that. In what you see behind me, we've got a couple different options for antennas. We've got the ATOS antenna for an HF radio that will be going in that Ram 2500. But we've also got a dual band standard ham radio antenna that's back there. We'll be doing the installs with both those, testing them, see how they work. You've got the radios back there. You can see that great big box back there. That's for this guy here. It's the Yaesu FT 891. It's a tried and true all mode HF and 6 meter ham radio. So we're going to be doing that. We're going to be doing remote head installs and getting things set up. Also in the Ram, we'll be installing the new Yaesu FTM 500D. So this is a dual band FM 2 meter and 70 centimeter ham radio that also has digital modes. So some interesting stuff there with that. We're going to get that installed in the RAM. Also, again, it's going to have a remote head setup, and we'll be installing the actual radio in the back seat. So you'll get to see how we run all the wiring, how I set up all the power. We're going to be using a power distribution system in that truck because we're going to be doing multiple radios. Then in the side-by-side, keep it super simple. It's going to be a dual band, 2 meter, 70 centimeter Yaesu. You can tell I'm a big Yaesu fan, always have been. I've been out of the ham market for quite a long time, but coming back in strong. Just did my general upgrade, so that's where we're getting the HF rig set up in the truck. And you will see every step of the way how the install is taken care of. I can go over programming, antenna analyzation. Typically on hams in the dual band radios, you're not going to have to do any tuning with the antennas. They come really well tuned and you're good to go. In the GMRS setting, you're typically going to be using an antenna that may be from a land mobile radio setup, which is more for a broad range of channels, and you might have to do some antenna tuning. We'll go over that kind of stuff. So like I said, all this crosses over between ham and GMRS. So let's talk about the difference. As far as the equipment goes, there are very specific requirements the FCC requires for ham radios and GMRS. However, once you buy one and you're getting ready to put it in your vehicle, the way that they're wired and the way that you handle the setup is basically all the same. But the difference with ham radio versus GMRS, the way that I would explain it very simply, is that GMRS is a great radio system for outdoor activities and to be able to talk to people that you know. So if you're in a group of people, you can have folks that are using these kind of tiny little handheld radios, typically referred to as a bubble pack radio. You can buy them at Walmart. You can get them anywhere you want. Very low power, very short range, but you can operate very high-end GMRS radios that are installed in a off-road vehicle or a side-by-side, whatever you're using. You can communicate with those folks that have those little tiny bubble pack radios. So that's the great advantage to GMRS. Bigger GMRS radios, similar to what these hand radios are that we're installing, you can easily transmit 25, 50 miles with those in a mobile setting, set up in a vehicle. The great thing about GMRS is you can also use really nice handheld radios, similar to this particular ham radio here. This is a Yaesu. Very similar options are available in high quality lithium ion batteries and shock-proof kind of settings. You can get GMRS radios just like this and be able to talk really far. You're getting 5 to 8 watts out of these things. You can change your antennas in a GMRS setting just like this if you wanted to go a little further. These radios, anywhere from $100 to $150 for something like this, or you can go with a much cheaper option in the Baofeng radios or Baofeng. There's a whole bunch of different pronunciations on these things, but these guys are excellent radios as well. And you can buy a bunch of these radios, hand them out to your friends, and be able to communicate really long distances and incorporate these type radios into the mobile setting as well with your hard-mounted, high-power mobile radio that's GMRS. Now, when we talk about ham versus GMRS, there's not really a competition between the two because they're very different settings. So like I said, if you want to be able to communicate with people you know, GMRS is a great way to go. If you want to be able to make connections all around the world and talk to people that you don't know, people you've never met, but people that are interested in the same hobby as you, ham radio is an excellent option. Ham radio also has an important role to play in emergency communications throughout the United States, through varying connections with the federal government, local governments, in order to provide backup communications when things go awry and cell phones don't work and you have a disaster like a hurricane, earthquakes, things like that. So ham radio is much more diverse. There are many more frequencies, what we refer to as bands, that you can use for communicating with ham radios. And also in an emergency situation, say in a remote area, chances are you can hail somebody with a ham radio and be able to get them to communicate to emergency services for you and get help that way. That is not as likely to happen with a GMRS radio because it's more of a closed-in communication group where only people in your certain activity may be monitoring the frequencies, whereas in ham radio settings, many thousands of people are monitoring different frequencies. There's also many thousands of repeaters that help pass along the radio waves and magnify your ability to transmit in the ham setting. Repeaters can also be used in GMRS, but they're not as widely used and as widely available throughout the United States. So keep that in mind that it's going to be a little bit different. So land mobile radio, I touched on that a few minutes ago. That is more of the public safety radio standpoint, police, fire, medical personnel, hospitals, big like stadiums would have land mobile radios that they're using, security agencies. The difference is the licensing covers everybody that uses the radio, and then the radio equipment is quite expensive. This is the land mobile radio that I use for one of my positions, and these things will run a couple $1,000s typically. This is an older model, and it only works on our public safety frequencies. Where if you wanted to depart from that, there are ways to use the land mobile radios with the GMRS frequencies, as well as the MURS frequencies. MURS is a VHF setup, and GMRS is UHF. So there's a difference in the bands that they use, and that's something that you'll find out more when you go through the links that I've got in my description. I didn't want to try to cover all that information in here because I don't want to make it too long. And one of the reasons that I'm breaking up a lot of different videos is to keep it short and just focused on the one step that we're doing. As we go through the videos, the big part 1, part 2, part 3, those will be the major episodes of how to do the install. This will be part 1. Part 2, I will probably just roll straight into doing the antenna install on the side-by-side, and then part 3 we will do the electrical install and the mounting of the radio, and then part 4 we'll do the testing and see how things work out. I will also do some shorter product videos, and we'll call those 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So if you're not interested in the breakdown on the product videos, just hit the major part videos, you'll get the whole install. It'll be a little bit before I get to the truck install. We'll get the side-by-side done. And in the truck install, we will go much more in depth because we're dealing with multiple radios, remote head mounting, remote speakers, remote mic mounts, and multiple antennas. I'm also going to show off the most expensive antenna mount I've ever seen in my life. I went ahead and bought one, and we'll go through that. That is specific to the Ram. You can get them from multiple different kind of trucks. But this one mounts to the Ram, and we'll get an antenna installed on that, and then show you how we can adapt that to the ATOS system, which is an HF radio antenna that's back there we'll be installing for the HF radio as well. The interesting thing about ham is that it is a hobby all in itself. So it does require that you become licensed by the FCC, and volunteer coordinators do the exam testing. Places like Ham Radio Prep do an excellent job of teaching you everything you need to know to pass the exam. You won't have any problem with the new prep programs that are available nowadays. So there's 3 levels of licensing for ham radios, and that's the technician, general, and amateur extra. And each one of them has a different question pool and a different depth of knowledge that you have to have. And each different license allows you different access to different bands. The technician license allows you mostly access to UHF and VHF frequencies, which is what these small HTs are that I've been showing off earlier. You can also use your you can also use your mobile radio that we're going to be installing on UHF and VHF, and it's perfect for communicating with your friends if they're hams. Not so good with crossing over from ham to GMRS, which is where GMRS shines, where everybody can get a GMRS radio and be licensed through the FCC but not have to take an exam. So once you get a license with the FCC for your GMRS, It's very simple for you to have your whole family covered with that one license. Runs about $35. There'll be in the description links to other places where they'll give you the rundown on exactly how to get that license taken care of. Same thing for the ham stuff. If you're interested in getting in ham radio, there will be links below that to walk you through everything you need to know to get your license. So take a look at those links and go nuts. Come on back for the next few episodes as we develop this series in installing the mobile radios in multiple vehicles and kind of build more information from there as we look at the products, look at the tools, and show you exactly what you need to do to get rolling. Thanks for joining me.